The final tune-up for the PGA Tour before they head to Augusta next week is this week at the Valero Texas Open at TPC San Antonio, and we got some good names in the field trying to get ramped up before the Masters next week. So a decent field to discuss, some fun names in each salary tier, and what should be a pretty good event from a DFS perspective. So let's lock in, get you set for some DFS for this week at the Valero Texas Open. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sadas. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, joined here as always by Brandon Gadula. He is the senior managing editor of numberFire.com. Did I say your new title right? Did I jack it up there? Are we all good?
We're good.
I gotta get in my rhythm and change it up now because you're the senior managing editor of numberFire.com. Brandon Gadula. He's on Twitter at Gadula13. Brandon, you're old now. How you feeling? Old, decrepit, aged.
Yeah, actually, I got a haircut.
I saw that.
Yes, and my hair was getting quite long, and I felt young because I used to grow my hair out as a youngster.
They added the word senior to your title, and now you're just washed, right? Like that's your back hurt a little bit more this morning?
Yeah, my back always hurts. My knees always hurt. Well, just the one really, but got a nice haircut. Feeling a little bit more mature. So I'm going to go through this hour or so with no jokes, all serious. This is a grown-up podcast.
As always, we've never once told a lie, told a joke on this here podcast. Not once in the entirety of our lives.
All serious business.
Way. Yeah, we've never joked. Never
We're not around. Surely we don't jest.
I forgot the actual line. I know that it involves Shirley. Don't call me Shirley, but no. Were you trying to bait me here?
No, it's
an airplane joke, right?
No, it deals with the league that we don't really discuss, the Saudi league and all that kind of stuff.
I thought you were making like an airplane joke. Okay, just kidding. Greg
Norman wrote a letter to the PGA Tour, and it opens up, surely you jest. So it's been
Greg. It's been a fun. Yeah. There was Formula One in Saudi Arabia this past week too, so it's been an interesting.
WWE was just there.
There was a missile strike 6 miles from the track during practice Friday. Just things are going great. Things are just delightful across the board. But what's also delightful is the field for this week at the Valero Texas Open. We're going to break things down from a DFS perspective and get you set for this week's field in just 1 second. But first, hey, basketball fans, we are in the heat of March Madness as the 2022 field is down to the final 4 teams. And this year, FanDuel is partnering with Visible Wireless to give you a one-of-a-kind contest for the final 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament. The Call Your Shot Pick'em presented by Visible is a free-to-play contest where you make predictions for this weekend's games and compete for cash prizes. Simply answer a few pick'em questions for each game this weekend and earn points for each correct answer. The more you get right, the more points you'll earn and the more cash you could win. Head over to FanDuel.com/free/contest/visible wireless and make your predictions today. I'm assuming there's a banner up in the lobby as well. But FanDuel.com/free/contest/visible wireless and make your prediction today. There is no better way to get in on the action than with the Call Your Shot Pick'em presented by Visible. Also, a quick reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. We're, of course, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, you name it. You can find us there for NBA, NHL, UFC, and NASCAR podcasts. No UFC this week from Austin Swain, but back next week. NASCAR on Friday, breaking down Richmond. Of course, Tom Vecchio with NBA, NHL, DFS, and the Solo Shot back next week for the opening day of Major League Baseball, your favorite sport, to begin the 390-day season of Major League Baseball, Brandon, starting next week. I'm sure you are thrilled and will be living in the DFS streets.
Yes, as someone who is a managing editor, planning out content.
Senior managing editor.
Part of the gig here, and I'm looking into the baseball schedule, realizing there are like 16 games scheduled on like every Tuesday. That's very fun to have extra baseball, nonstop baseball. It's always good never to be able to step away from any sport and do anything else. So I'm looking forward to this MLB season.
Why would you want to step away from a league that has Byron Buxton? That's my true question here, but whatever. We can address that later on. Also, if you want some Final Four betting thoughts, we had John Rothstein of CBS Sports on covering the spread yesterday. Find that by searching for Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, let's dive in here to the Valero Texas Open at TPC San Antonio, the Oaks course. It is 7,438 yards, and it is a par 72. The event was canceled back in 2020 due to COVID-19. So, of course, course history, we got 2021 data, but then before that, 2019, 2018, et cetera, et cetera. There are 144 golfers in the field for this week. The top 65 plus ties will make the cut after the first 2 rounds. And the winner of this event would still qualify for the Masters if they are not already qualified. So keep that in mind.
Ricky.
If there are guys hypothetically, who are not yet qualified, they could do so for this week's maybe a little extra motivation, win juice narrative in play for this week at the Valero Texas Open. Brandon, we do know what to expect at TPC San Antonio. They've been here for 13, 14-ish years for this event at this course. What do we know about TPC San Antonio?
Yeah, kind of a long par 72, but pretty wide open. According to Data Golf, this has the least penal rough on the PGA Tour. So basically, you can downplay driving accuracy. That's not to say driving distance is a must, but whenever you have a course where driving accuracy doesn't matter so much, usually that's a bit of a green light to target golfers who do hit it longer, who generally don't hit it as straight as the shorter hitters. Jordan Spieth won here last year while spraying it all over the place, and I think we all remember that leading in to the Masters. But last year, 5 of the 11 golfers tied for the top 10 were outside the top 50 in driving accuracy for the week. So it's definitely not a key stat for me with driving accuracy. That said, it's still hard to gain strokes from shorter approaches. So you kind of want some distance, but even with the shorter approaches, you're going to have a little bit of trouble. The bunkers are really where you don't want to miss. You can stay in the rough off the green. You just don't want to go into the bunkers here. So you can look at sand saves in case, that's an angle you want to play. Sand saves might be the worst traditional stat, honestly, because it doesn't account for any sort of difficulty. You also have to make the putt as long as you don't, assuming you don't hole out. But, it's kind of a weird course to explain based on key stats, because there's not a specific archetype that you have to have in order to win. That said, I like driving distance this week. I like strokes gained approach. I like strokes gained around the green, and I like birdie or better rate, because the past winners here have been 18 under, 20 under, 17 under, and then 12 under and 12 under. So, plenty of birdies to be had out there. And you want to be able to take advantage of just basically not getting into trouble. And some sort of distance can really help with that off the tee.
Yeah, so I'm looking at strokes gained off the tee just because it's kind of a blend of shorter and longer stuff. So I kind of wanted to go and you look at last year or past data in terms of off the tee stats. There isn't really kind of, like you said, one archetype that tends to shine through. So I just want to go with strokes gained off the tee, look at the better overall players. I thought that was a key there. Do it birdies are better gained in there as well, as you alluded to. As far as the putting, I have a blend of weighted towards POA, but also overall putting stats in there, just because the sample on POA is smaller, and because there are a lot of dudes who don't have a lot of POA. There are a lot of younger guys in this field too, so it's kind of a weird week. I'll reference it as just putting. But know that it's a blend of POA in there with overall putting. How important for you is the birdies are better gained factor there? Are you selling out for birdie makers however they get there this week, or is it more so just bumping up guys who make a lot of birdies, maybe bumping down guys who don't?
So the way that I use key stats isn't just picking the 4 or 5 that I mentioned and making a ranking and saying whoever has the lowest total ranking or whatever, or the highest total score, whatever it is. Every time I cite a key stat, for me, it just goes into my model, and everything is just a percentage. It's weighted. So for me, strokes gained approach always gets about 30 to 35% of the rating that I end up using. For me this week, birdie or better rate is 10%. Some weeks I don't have it weighted in. Some weeks I have it higher than that. This week for me, it's about 10%. So, I mean, to answer your question, it's great to have, good birdie numbers. And I want guys who make birdies, but that's only a small piece to the puzzle, as really is the case with all golf events at any course.
Yep. As always, again, making tweaks, not making cross-offs, stuff like that based on what you're looking for there.
Yeah. And the best example always is just because a course rewards driving accuracy, you don't just rank the guys by fairways hit. You're going to have a bad time. You're going to have a bad time.
Man, I usually don't, but I can hit a fairway. So
I mean, birdie
should be
birdie or better rate is going to get you closer to where you need to be than just driving accuracy. But it's it's something that I say a lot is it's all just, parts of it. And while birdie or better rate, I think, matters this week, we do see cut lines around even. So you don't have to go super low under to make the cut. You probably have to go low to win. But
we want that win juice at some point.
Yeah, you want that strokes gain approach.
You know who does have win juice at this course specifically, Brandon?
One Corey Connors.
It's one Corey Connors. Corey Connors is 11-6. We transition now into the course history section of our discussion for today. Corey Connors, back in 2019, got a win here at TPC San Antonio in the Valero Texas Open. He is one of the studs for this week. Pretty short betting odds. What is your read on Connors based on his history at this course?
Yeah, I mean, we're always prepped. We're always looking for a Corey Connors week on the heat check, and that's worked out in the past at the Valero. He has finished 26th in 2018, won in 2019, and then was 14th in 2021, while having some weak chipping, which he also did in his win as well. And anyone who watched the match play probably saw a lot of the same things with some of that short game from Corey Connors, although I hear a lot on the coverage that Corey Connors is a great putter and has great short game. It's not really there statistically, but hey, I look at the numbers, not necessarily the film, especially when it comes to golf. But Connors rates out with some of the best form in the field, in addition to having great course history. He made the Final Four at the WGC Match Play, finished third, was 26th at the Players, 11th at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. He's got the right stats, the right fit for this course. The big issue is the salary of $11,600. While I think in a vacuum that's justified, and his win odds being where they are at 16-1, it makes sense. The issue is to play Corey Connors in DFS, you're saying, I like him. I'm not going to get to Rory Mcilroy for an extra 400. I'm going to have a hard time with that.
Yeah, it's Rory specifically for me. Spieth, whatever. I mean, he's had his issues. I can understand that. I can use Connors in that discussion. Honestly, even Connors versus Hideki is kind of tough for me too. I
don't know if Hideki's 100%, so I'm not that
fair.
Concerned with Hideki this week, but
right. But it's still, I know that they check a lot of the same boxes when they're at, full go and stuff like that. So it's harder for me to care too much about that. So I think for me, the main thing is, can I use Connors over McIlroy? I can't. Can I use him over Hideki if I assume Hideki is good? I can't. After that, it's more of a discussion where I'm okay with going to Connors, but I kind of it needs to be in lineups where I'm not using McIlroy or Hideki for me to get there, I guess. And I'm probably going to use a lot of Rory, so it's not going to be a large number of lineups where I'm not going there. And if I don't go Rory, I might go more balanced too.
Can I do a Hideki versus Corey Connors bet?
No, because it's more like a tournament mindset. Because I think if you're thinking about Hideki, you're thinking about it in terms of the ceiling is still there. Because if he were truly banged up, he might not be here. He might rest up one more week before defending his title. So I think that for me, it's more so like a tournament mindset, and that doesn't really set up well for a head-to-head bet.
I gotcha.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at with him with regards to that. Okay, let's talk about Charlie Hoffman. We talk about Charlie Hoffman every year at this event. You can just pencil him in. I'm kind of shocked he wasn't like auto-filled by Google on our Google Doc for this week. But anyway, we'll work on it, Google. We'll workshop this. But Hoffman is golfing bad now. He's not in the Connors zone. He has missed 2 straight cuts. He has not finished better than 67 since the Zozo, which was not this year. But he tends to feast at TPC San Antonio. Hoffman has played this course 11 times. He has never missed a cut, and he has 5 top 3 finishes in that time. That includes both 2019 and 2021. He tends to gain strokes in every department. The problem is that the form entering last year was honestly good. Like, I think Hoffman was also like 93 or 95. I don't know. I think he was low salaried last year. I remember talking about him for this event last year. Like, hey, he's low salary, golfing pretty well, tends to do well here. Cool. They're not as good this year. They're not even as good as they were in 2019 when he was also bad.
He was 10-5 last year.
What's that?
He was 10-5 last year.
Close enough.
According to our spreadsheet or our Google Doc.
So you're getting a $300 discount on Hoffman this year at 10-2. Is that enough for you to buy in, or are we out?
Like, I get the case. He is he's above the 50th percentile on all 4 of my adjusted strokes gained stats. He should have some putting regression. He's longer off the tee than he is accurate. It's a good fit. I get the case for it. I just don't necessarily know that he is a standout play for me. Given the salary, I think I'd rather go with a few other options around that tier. And if I can click on the right button here, I will filter and let you know exactly who that is. Chris Kirk, Ryan Palmer, Luke List, Russell Knox.
Whoa.
What?
Whoa. You omitted someone.
Johnny Vegas?
Yeah. Why are we not on Johnny again?
Oh, no. I would rather play Johnny Vegas than
Okay.
Charlie Hoffman.
Okay, cool. The overall takeaway is that there are guys here we like. Hoffman is not one of them, so he's a pretty easy cross-off, correct?
I wouldn't say I don't like Hoffman. I just don't like him as much as other guys.
I don't.
It's a distinction for me.
Do you want to do a Charlie Hoffman versus Rory Mcilroy bet?
Yeah, if I get Rory.
No. Yeah, I thought. See, no. Okay, let's talk about Martin Laird. He is $8,800. Laird, another guy like Connors, former winner at this event. What do you see with him when you look into his course history?
Yeah, another former winner at TPC San Antonio's Oaks course back in 2013, and in total, he's made 8 of 9 cuts with 4 total top 20s. So that's nearly half of his starts. He's finished top 20 at this course. You'll take that at almost any salary whenever you're looking for course form, but from a value golfer, you'll definitely take that. Just 3 of his total results were worse than T36. So again, lots of good finishes here for him. The recent events really bogged down by awful putting. His irons are really good right now, though. Over the past 3 months, Laird, according to Data Golf's True Strokes Gained Query, is 9th in approach in this field, 33rd off the tee, 9th overall tee to green. 119th in putting, though. And even with that bad putting, he's still 21st in this field in their true strokes gained over the past 3 months. So, I mean, you can really talk yourself into worrying about Laird for a higher salary at 88. I mean, he's no riskier than some other value golfers. So I think Laird makes a lot of sense. I actually bet him outright already this week, just for the fun of it, for a nice long ticket there.
Yeah, I think of the guys we're discussing. Yeah, she agrees. She's a big Martin Laird fan. I think of the guys we're discussing here in the course history, Laird is pretty easily the best option because, like, he didn't get the price jump like everyone else did. Laird didn't, and like you said, the iron's really good. Putting not, but he's also had like some good weeks off the tee. So like he's not terrible around the green either. So like he actually has a lot of really solid data to support the fact that we should be on board with him. So I have no objections to Laird. I think that he's a pretty solid play. I think probably one of the better values in this field. Do you agree?
I would agree.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about Kevin Streelman here. He is 10-3 in that same range as Hoffman, Vegas, List, et cetera, et cetera. Streelman, pretty rough earlier this year and at the end of the summer, but perking up right now in time for a good course for him. Streelman has been here 6 times. He has finished top 15 in 4 of those, including each of the past 2 trips for him. Those were an 8th in 2018, 6th in 2019, so he was not here last year. But most recently, Streelman finished 22nd at the Players. He was 7th at the Valspar. That wasn't thanks in part to some good short game play, but the ball striking there was pretty solid too. So Streelman, good at this course, struggled over the summer, but has been getting better recently. Is that enough for you to buy back in on him at 10-3?
I think the salary is just again in a range where I don't see enough. His irons are trending down like long term over the past 6 months. He's actually had some better putting numbers than you would expect, and even with that, he should have a little bit more regression coming his way. Also, more of a bogey avoider than a birdie maker. I know that doesn't really matter here, and that's why, or it doesn't matter because he's played well here, which is why birdie or better rate is just one sort of stat here that you kind of factor into certain degrees. But for me, I think that I have other names in this range I like more than Streelman, and I feel pretty okay trying to go down to a Luke List, for example, or find some salary to get back up to a Chris Kirk.
I think that Chris Kirk is probably the most appealing name in that range. So let's talk about him and shift on to the current form section, because Chris Kirk, is a guy who does have some course history. He's 10-5. I think we could have included him in either section. But Kirk, pretty interesting. And I think he's one of the highlights of a really good tier. So what do you see with Chris Kirk recently at 10-5?
Yeah, I mean, like, again, he could have fit in the course form, but a little bit up and down here. 2 missed cuts in his past 4, but ultimately has 4 top 15s and 7 tries. So he's got some upside, and that's always what you want to see. Floor is a myth, unless you're the buoy John Rahm, who is the unsinkable. But we haven't seen Kirk since he missed the cut at the Players when he had a weak short game. I'm okay forgiving missed cuts at the Players any year, but especially this year. The ball striking has been good for him lately. And whenever he does pair that with like even okay putting, that's when he's had the high-end finishes. Namely, he's got 3 top 15s, or had 3 top 15s leading into the Players. Over the past 3 months, Kirk's 6th in Data Golf's True Strokes Gained query, 25th or better in all 3 of those individual tee to green stats, 41st in putting. I think Kirk makes a lot of sense. He might honestly be if not for one other name in this range, just above Kirk, I feel like I would be more drawn to a balanced approach. I don't know if I can play Rory, Kirk, and Gary Woodland. I don't know what that's going to look like for me, but with Laird and some other values, it is possible that it's doable, and I still like it. But I think Kirk is a standout. I would probably just rank him a little bit behind Gary Woodland this week.
Okay. I feel like we might have a little bet brewing here, because
I'm not betting against Chris Kirk, who's one of my favorite plays of the week.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not asking about Kirk. I want to offer you Gary Woodland versus Maverick Mcneely. McNeely's 10-9, Woodland 10-8. I think I like McNeely more than you do. I like him more than Woodland. Will you take it?
How many FanDuel points will I be spotted for the egregious price or salary discrepancy of $100?
I'll spot you -3. So I get 3
If
points.
I try, it's a classic GM.
Don't come at me, bro.
So I like McNeely. Are you talking about him later in detail?
Player picks, but not until then.
So for me, he's putting really, really well. He has the hottest putter relative to expectation, according to my regression data. Other than that, though, everything looks good. I would just expect him to cool off a little bit. Meanwhile, we have Gary Wilden, who's longer off the tee, has better iron play, also a better expected putter, just not putting as hot. So I'll take that, even though, again, I wouldn't talk anyone out of McNeely, but I like Gary Woodland plenty this week.
Okay, so I have Maverick McNeely. You have Gary Woodland. I would say that Kirk is also probably above Woodland for me. Let me check that first. Actually, I don't know. I'd probably go Woodland above Kirk. But I think that Kirk lives in the zone where he's justified in being near that top option. So if I need the $300 cushion from Woodland down to Kirk, I'll take that. I would also say that Kirk is probably a step up from most of the guys in the lower 10,000 range. I do love Jonathan Vegas, and we'll talk about him in a second. So full respect to him. But if we're talking about Kirk compared to Streelman, Hoffman, Palmer, I think Palmer's solid, but I think I'd rather go Kirk over him. So if I can't get back up to Woodland or Mcneely, totally on board with Kirk. And I think that I would also try to get back up there if I'm in the lower 10,000 range. I'd rather reconfigure a bit to get back up to Kirk rather than them. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd rather get to Kirk than like Palmer.
Okay.
I'd probably be fine just dropping down to list for that amount of savings of 600. But
Sure.
just a heads up, a Rory Woodland Kirk start leaves me 8,900 for final three.
It's not the worst.
I don't love that, but it's not the worst.
Yeah. So let's talk about Johnny Vegas, who you blatantly disrespected earlier on. We were on Vegas last week, and he pulled through with a really solid fourth place finish. It was his 7th straight event being positive in true strokes gained. It was his 9th time in 10 events doing that, dating back to the Houston Open last year. It also puts Vegas up to 8th in strokes gained off the tee, 8th in approach, and 4th in birdies or better gain per Fantasy National over his past 50 rounds. Vegas is 10-4. It's not, just the Corrales in a really rough field where he's done well. So it's not some soft field only thing. So I think that Vegas is actually pretty solid. I think if I'm looking at that 10,000 range, I go Kirk 1, Vegas 2, and I think Vegas is a strong 2 in that range. How are you viewing him in what you think is a good tier?
So what were those salaries?
Vegas is 10-4, Kirk is 10-5.
Yes, I know that. You cited a specific range where you ranked them.
I said mid 10,000 range. I think, whatever. Like below, like lop off Woodland.
So you're saying
10,000.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk's the obvious number one there. I think
Vegas is a solid 2. It's between him and like Adam Hadwin, I would guess, at 10-7.
I'd probably go Palmer 3 just for the savings. This is a good course fit for Palmer. Can just like launch it. His putting should not be nearly as bad as it has been. He should be about baseline, but has been really rough from with his lag putting. So I'm probably going to put Palmer 3rd, but that's more of a salary saving indication because realistically, I'm not going to play Adam Hadwin at 10-7. That's too high of a salary.
Yeah. So you're saying you wouldn't give me a Palmer versus Vegas head to head?
No, I like Vegas more straight up, but I think that I'm going to need some salary savings eventually, and I can't play them all.
Okay, so let's talk about some salary savers, one of whom is Mito Pereira. He is $9,300. I think we were both on Mito this week. What puts you on him?
We're on a lot of the same guys as we'll learn in player picks, but
yeah,
Mito already bet him pretty instantly, and his salary is way too low for me at 9,300. So there's a lot of savings baked into this, but just has a lot to do with his recent form. T27 at Valspar did miss the cut at the Players with awful putting, but again, I don't even care really about missed cuts at the Players, especially this year. T30 at Honda, T15 at Genesis before that. Those are just great results for someone with a salary of 9,300. And in total, Pereira is either missing cuts or finishing top 30, and you'll take that in your DFS tournament lineups. And I probably will just go there for cash games anyway because the salary's low. For me, Pereira ranks 92nd percentile in my adjusted tee to green data over the past year, which accounts for field strength and recency. He's pretty long off the tee. He's expected to have some putting regression in his favor. I am locking in Mito, even in my head-to-heads with the up and down sort of missed cuts or top 30s. I think he's too good of a play at that salary to pass up.
I think you look at the finishes for Mito, you're seeing what you may see is like a perceived lack of upside, but I think that what that kind of does is overlooks like that he has the components necessary for upside. Like you mentioned putting regression. If he gets putting regression on top of keeping his good ball striking, that's upside. Like that's what that is. So you could look at the form and say, oh, okay, he's not going to or look at the finishes and say, okay, he's not going to be a top 15, top 10 type guy. But I think that like that actually is within his range of outcomes personally. So I think Mito works for all formats. Definitely a guy I will be using. Like in a cash game, I'm trying to maximize like under-salaried guys. And I think that Mito is pretty high on that list. So to me, I think that he'll be one of the first people I put in there. Are you yawning or are you going to yell at me?
No, if anyone doesn't know, I published a piece on numberFire.com about putting regression, which basically says we can learn a lot about how guys should putt long-term based on how good they are from within 15 feet. So a lot of what I'm looking at is putting from within 15 feet because you can't control, and it's a very small sample with longer putts overall. But again, Mito Pereira, one of the reasons I liked him is he's set for some putting regression and is actually in the 95th percentile in putting from within 15 feet. But Cameron Champ, 84th percentile, we know he's long off the tee. We know he's got some upside. So he's 120 to 1 to win on FanDuel Sportsbook. I might take a look at Cam Champ, 8,500 too. That he might be a value play that I talk myself into by Thursday, and I might just take a stab on a Cam Champ bet.
Okay, I like it.
Maybe not. Maybe top 10. Maybe top 10.
Okay, yeah. Just check out the whole top 10. I'm so turned off of top 10 bets from.
I know you are.
Just yeah. I'm out. For that reason, I'm out. Let's talk here about Alex Smalley. Smalley was our boy last week. Came through with a runner-up finish. That was pretty solid.
No. He didn't come through because I bet him. He was a win bet for me, and he came runner-up. And as you eloquently
get the
told
each
me,
way.
He's a loser.
Yeah, he didn't win. He's a loser. You ain't first, you're last. Sorry. Maybe if he were Alex Biggie instead of Alex Smalley, wouldn't have happened. He's still Smalley though. Let's talk about him.
I wish we would have stuck to the no jokes after that one.
Are they actually jokes? Do they count? They just seem bad. They're just bad. I think that's what they actually are. But we got to decide if Smalley is a guy we can turn to in a tougher field at a much lower salary this week. Smalley, there's no shot tracker, but he was good when you adjust for the field last week. He was a plus 2.25 total strokes gained per round, according to Data Golf. He's now at 0.44 per round over the past 6 months, which is not bad for 87. So new context for Smalley going to a tougher field, but also a lower salary. What's your read on him for this week?
Yeah, I like him again. Sticking with him, good ball striker. One of the issues that we can run into is, again, like weaker field stuff. But if you can adjust that pretty well, get a good context. And even with that, he's still a pretty good player. So I'm in on Smalley this week for sure.
Okay, so let's move now to what the bookmakers are saying about this week with Rory Mcilroy, the clear betting favorite. He is 7-1 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Jordan Spieth is also in a tier of his own. He's 11-1. We got Corey Connors at 16-1. Hideki Matsuyama is 17-1. Abraham Answer 21-1, followed by Bryson DeChambeau at 24-1. We're going to dip down to Siwoo Kim at 31-1. Adam Hadwin and Keegan Bradley are 33-1. We got Gary Woodland, Maverick McNeely, and Chris Kirk round at the top group. They are all 34-1. So let's talk about Rory and Spieth because they're the runaway favorites here. McIlroy 7-1, Spieth 11-1. How are you handling them this week in DFS?
In DFS, it's Rory is the closest thing to a lock for me that I can get to. He's going to be my top player pick. It's not going to be contrarian or anything like that, but I do think that you can't really make a case for anyone else by comparison. He's long off the tee, just the best long-term player in my model comfortably. I think he's about 0.4 shots better than Hideki, accounting for recency. 0.3 about, and then Hideki's like 0.3 over Corey Connors. So it's a pretty big gap between everyone over Hideki. And if Hideki's not 100%, we could be looking at, and again, can't just add up these and say this is how these guys are going to perform, but we're looking at a pretty big jump for Rory over the field in terms of a starting point. And he's putting well. His short game is actually pretty good right now, but he's not overperforming with the putting. So
right.
I think Rory is a standout. As for Spieth, I'll be rooting for him. I don't think I'll end up playing him though. I think he'll be a little bit too chalky.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you got the win here last year. That's going to help some things. There's the pre-Augusta narrative for Jordan Spieth. He's had spikes recently, like at Pebble Beach. Like that was a while ago now. It was early February, but like he did play really well there and finished second. Since then, hasn't been bad. The approach play has been back, or like partially back at least, which is good. So like, I don't think it's like a terrible idea to look at him just because rounding to form, knows his course really well, stuff like that. But I think that for me personally, it's pretty easy to go Rory 1. I'd rather take a shot. If I'm going to take a shot on someone who might not be like perfect right now, I'd rather go with Hideki over Spieth. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm also looking at Bryson though.
Oh,
If
no.
that's the angle we're going for,
No. No.
where it's not penalizing to miss fairways.
I don't know. This is just me.
Phenomenal short range putter too.
So this is just me. The fact that Hideki's here tells me that he's like the back is not as big of an issue as like it. What? Why are you laughing? I know the players is a lot of money, but like you think about it from his perspective, he's trying to defend the Masters coming up in a couple weeks, wants to rest up. I don't think he'd be here if the back were like truly terrible. That's not a justification for doing in cash games, but like for tournaments that allows me to like talk myself into it pretty easily.
I just laughed because you would think if Paul Casey shows up to the WGC match play that he's going to play, and he did.
I think those are different circumstances because the level of degaff at a certain point can get a little high with Mr. Casey. Oh,
look, I'm with you. I think there's a clear game theory standpoint that we can just cling to. Now, I thought when I opened up FanShare Sports that we'd see a lot of tags on Rory. We're seeing a lot on Chris Kirk already. We don't see any on Rory yet. So I know it's early in the week, but we are seeing some numbers populate. None on Rory seems a little peculiar. Spieth has one tag. I know this will all change by Thursday, but we got to imagine that the chalk at the top includes Rory, probably Corey Connors, and then Spieth to some degree, right? That's kind of makes the most sense based on everything.
Probably. Yeah.
So you could pivot extremely easily with Hideki, with Bryson, which sounds like you're not into. I would take a chance based on the course fit. For Bryson, he's not a good match play player, so I'm not worried about what happened last week. The fact that he played last week is telling.
And yet you don't give that same credit to Hideki. Curious.
Well,
curious. That's all I'll say.
I think it's different.
Sure it is. Which golfer's odds have shifted most since things opened yesterday?
There's been a good bit because everyone started off a little steep for me, but we've seen some shuffling both ways. We've seen Abraham Answer move from 22 to 21 to 1 on FanDuel Sportsbook, which I know is small, but it's significant if other people are lengthening. Chris Kirk 37 to 34. Ricky Fowler 65 to 55. Same case for Davis Riley. Mito Pereira, our guy, 80 to 55. Love that. KH Lee, who's also our guy this week, and Doug Gim, 80 to 75. And then Lee Westwood, who is not too old. I just want to clarify that. Dylan Fratelli, Matthew Neesmith, Martin Laird, 120 to 90. Those guys have all had their odds lengthen.
Okay, so we've not talked about Ricky yet.
Or shorten. Sorry.
Yeah. So Ricky, you talked about him at the beginning is like, hey, he has to qualify for the Masters. Got that narrative. Betting odds have shortened. Ball striking numbers are not like hideous. He's had decent course success here. Personally, I'm probably not going to get there. But I did want to ask at least any inclination for you towards old Ricky Fowler.
I think he is at his salary of 96. He is perfectly salaried for some of the struggles are less glaring right now. He's going to be someone who could make a run. He could be someone who misses the cut. I don't really see a huge difference between him and like Davis Riley right now or any other names in this range aside from Mito, who's way better right now. So again, I don't think Ricky's like over salaried. I think it's fair, but I'm not going to be on Ricky this week. I will root for him if he's in contention, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to Spieth. We're like, might not use them, but we can still root for them either way. Which lower salary golfers have
I want to talk quickly about 4 guys whose odds of lengthen just because it's noticeable.
Okay.
Hideki 14-17. That's why I said lengthen, because I was going to transition and then I didn't. Hideki 14-17, so take that, Jim. Bryson 20-24, so take that.
Take that, Brandon.
Tony Finau 31-36, and your guy Charlie Hoffman 31-46.
Let's not do this. Charlie Scoffman, I think, is what the betting public is saying here. Yeah.
Yes.
Buy or
I
sell.
just wanted to note those because those were some bigger ones toward the top of the board who might.
We have not even discussed. Like, if you were listening to this podcast, hadn't looked at the field, you would not know that Tony Finau was in the field until you mentioned that he lengthened.
Yeah, and the wild part is, for how bad of a putter as we know he is, my data says he should be worse because he's had some luck from long range putts. So
I'm not going to ask you about Luke List in that regard. I know the answer and I don't want to know. I don't want to hear it. Nope, don't open your mouth. I heard you breathing in. Just don't do it. Don't do it.
Let's talk about some
I'll mute
salary.
you. I will not mute you. Go ahead.
Lower salary golfers that have odds to stand out to me. Kyung-Hoon Lee, 75-1 at 9,000 on FanDuel. A cluster at 80 includes Lucas Glover, Charles Howell III, and Chad Ramey. At 90-1, we have Martin Laird, Matthew Neesmith, Dylan Fratelli, Lee Westwood. And then 100-1, Alex Smalley, Kramer Hickok, Troy Merritt, Matt Jones, Brian Stewart, Anirban Lahiri, Takumi Kanaya, and Minwoo Lee.
So you lingered on Kyung-Hoon Lee's name for a second. Does that mean you have interest in KH Lee this week?
Love him.
Love him. Okay. He's my player picks, so that's good.
Me too.
We talked about Martin Laird already. Chad Ramey coming off a win in a very tough field last week.
Some say major-esque.
Yeah. Like Corrales, Augusta. I don't know. Same thing. Same difference. Personally. Any interest in Ramey for you this week?
Good irons. Not necessarily super long off the tee. Can make birdies, though. I think he's fine.
Yeah.
I think he's fine at 8,900. But if I were to pick between like Chad Ramey and Martin Laird, I think I'm just going to go with Martin Laird.
Okay. I would do the same there as well. And I'd rank KH Lee above Ramey too. I would put Lee. Where do you put him relative to Laird? Because I have a tough time with that one.
Kyung-Hoon Lee?
Yeah.
Probably above Laird by a tinge.
Okay, I'd agree with that too. Let's talk about the weather for this week. Wind speeds will increase a bit during the day on Thursday. They'll start around 5 miles per hour, gradually rise to around 9 miles per hour in the later afternoon. There's more wind on Friday, though, with the afternoon wave specifically dealing with it for the entire round. The earlier golfers will have a bit of a reprieve, but the end of their round will be blustery as well. So to me, I think the net winner of all this is the late Thursday, early Friday golfers. They'll likely have the lowest aggregate wind speed of the event. You don't need to stack tee times here. It's not that drastic, but I think you can bump up those teeing off later on Thursday a smidge. Weekend is pretty chill, so no need to include wind splits, but just a slight tweak for the first two rounds. With that said, let's dive into our player picks here for the Valero Texas Open. Brandon, who are you targeting for this week over on FanDuel.com?
Basically all the guys you are. We have 4 or 6 overlap here. But Rory is the top play. I think that you can't really get away from that. And I don't think I need to get too cute if people are going to be a little bit drawn towards Spieth or Corey Connors, perhaps. But I would assume Rory's going to be 40% rostered, give or take. But the course setup should fit Rory, who doesn't have the course form that others have toward the top. With those recent winners of Spieth and Connors, but super long off the tee, pretty good short game right now. Top 40 on the season in strokes gained around the green and putting, but he's not over putting, which is what you want to see. There's just no way I'm not playing Rory against you in our head-to-head tournaments. Maybe a different conversation, but if anything, I'd probably just plan on being overweight on Rory.
Me too. And I think that the key thing here is you mentioned the short game getting better, and we had talked about that, and we're like, okay, it's weird because the short game is getting better, but for some reason the irons weren't ticking, but now they are. Like, you look at his past two events, he's gained 2.8 strokes on approach in both of those. So if you give me Rory with an improved short game and irons that aren't quite like peak McIlroy, but very good, that's the recipe for him just taken a blowtorch to people. So I think that Rory, like you said, the first guy you lock in for a cash game, he is a guy I want to be overweight on in tournaments and will happily do so. And I think that he is the top stud for this week. Who is the second stud you're targeting on FanDuel for this week?
Gary Woodland. This was a long conversation for me between Woodland and Chris Kirk, but I landed on Woodland. I think he'll be a little bit more forgotten because Chris Kirk's been talked about a good bit. Woodland, though, 10-8 is a little bit higher salaried than Kirk, too, so that should maybe drive down a little bit of his popularity. But I think he might be close to back for what we know of Gary Woodland. And if nothing else, at least relative to this field. Finished T6 here a year ago, has 3 top 25s in his past 4 starts, including 2 top 5s, missed the cut at the Players, T21 outside of that as well. 91st percentile distance, 14th percentile in fairways gained, meaning he should gain some leverage based on what he does off the tee relative to what this course allows you to do. The irons are there, pretty solid putter. I think Gary Woodland is someone I'm going to kind of plant my flag in this week.
The only problem with Woodland is he's guaranteed to be dusted by Maverick Mcneely because of our head-to-head bets. Let's talk about Mcneely here as my second player pick in the upper range. He can have some struggles in approach, but he can also spike there, and the rest of his game is really good. Mcneely gained 3.8 strokes in approach his most recent time out. It was his third time gaining at least 2.5 there over his past 7 events. He's now to 39th in approach over the past 50 rounds. He is also 17th off the tee and 10th in birdies or better gained. Mcneely, very good putter. He has been awesome on POA in a very small sample, but I think he's a discounted stud here at 10-9, and again, guaranteed to beat Woodland at 10-8. Disregarding the fact you like Woodland more, what are your thoughts on Maverick Mcneely for this week?
Yeah, I like what I see from him. It's really an all-around game right now that is something that we've kind of been waiting for with Mcneely. Doesn't have any red flags that I'm looking for aside from scrambling, which is, again, not a key stat for me, also not the best stat, just for a lot of reasons. But for me, I mean, it's the fact that I think he's riding a little bit too hot of a putter. So I'm just at a salary of 10-9, willing to take a step back, maybe go towards someone like Gary Woodland or Chris Kirk. But also, again, I got to clarify, there's a difference between preferring someone and straight up saying, I think Maverick Mcneely is a bad play. I don't think he's a bad play.
You said Mcneely shouldn't even be on the tour. That's what I heard. Like, that was... Did you not say that I misremember that?
Says the guy who never listens to me anyway. I don't think you get to play that card.
I might have. I don't know. I sometimes listen to you, but then lie about it. Like, you know, I don't know. I don't want to give you credit for good points. That's usually what it is. Anyway, let's move to the mid-range. And we actually have the same 2 player picks for our mid-range picks. Those 2 guys are Mito Pereira and Luke List. Would you rather talk about Mito or Luke List?
I'll talk Mito because I actually think I would rather play Mito at 99 than List at 93.
What?
Like if you swapped them, like right now I have Mito above Luke List because obviously salaries are there. But if you swap,
you're saying
salaries,
you just prefer Mito over Luke List straight up, is what you're saying?
No, because that would imply like that we're factoring salary. Like if I have one,
you said you preferred Mito at 99 over Luke at Luke's List over.
I said I would.
93.
I would.
I don't know what you're saying. Just talk about right. Mito.
If I have 9,900 left for my final golfer,
you're gonna leave 600 on the table.
Yeah.
Wait. What? Just talk to me about Mito. I'm done. I'm done here. I quit.
I bet Mito like straight away when I saw him this week at the number that I got him. He's long off the tee relative to this field. Really good iron player, 95th percentile in adjusted iron play in my data over the past year. Just, I mean, he's getting bet down now, but he wasn't, posted there at the Open. Top 5 putting regression candidate and ranks in the 95th percentile in putting from within 15 feet over the past 50 rounds on tour. Compare that to Luke List, who I don't know if he's ever made a putt longer than 3 feet.
See, the thing is, he doesn't have to. because he's drained it from like the tee box, so it doesn't matter. So
Well, he's not.
He might. You never know. If next time Luke List gets a hole in one, you have to come back to me, crawling back to me on your knees, apologizing, because it's going to happen. I will use Luke List until I can use him no more, because his putting is hideous. It's bad, and it will stay that way. Over the past 6 months, he's at negative 0.83 true strokes gained putting per round, according to Data Golf, which is the 5th worst mark in the field of 144 golfers. He's poop. Despite that, he ranks 7th in total true strokes gained in that span. Everything else is so good that it makes up for it. List finished 17th last year here, even without his approach game being fully on. At 99, he's too good for me to pass up. So I love Mito too. I would not take Mito over Luke List straight up, personally. But you can if you want. I just think that List is great. I think they're both great. So I don't want this to make a Mito versus List thing. I'm just saying, I think you're being disrespectful to our boy, despite also having him as a player pick.
I just wanted to stress how much I like Mito this week. That's all.
Let's move down to the value tier. Who do you have there?
You tell me who I should have.
I don't know, man.
I got KH Lee. I love him this week, but so do you. So why don't you talk about him? Because I took preference in the mid-salary range.
Yeah, so the approach play for Lee has not been good recently. He actually has not gained since the American Express. So a 5-event stretch without gaining an approach. Despite that, he has made all 5 cuts. His streak of made cuts is now 11 events. He's done that by gaining off the tee and with his short game. And he's not like Rory. I'm not saying that. But like it's similar where like long term, we know the approach play for KH Lee has been better than what he's been doing recently. So if the approach play bounces back at all, then KH Lee could be a really good option given what he's been doing elsewhere. So I'm okay making that bet when his salary is 9,000.
KH McIlroy is what I'm hearing.
I think that Rory Lee, no, that doesn't work. Yeah, KH McIlroy is better. You're right. I should never argue with you. You're right. Any other thing you want to add
9 years
KH
to
Lee?
this?
Probably.
Just like kind of low upside consistency, but he missed the cut at the Sanderson Farms to the first event of the season, but made every cut since then. Just solid all around, kind of like a Alonto Griffin, Sebastian Munoz of yonder.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good way to put it. Okay, who else do you like here in the value range besides KH Lee?
Martin Laird. That shouldn't surprise anyone, but what also shouldn't surprise anyone is if Martin Laird can't putt this week. Just terrible with the putter. 8th percentile long term. Potential's really good though. It's very obvious. 92nd percentile in tee to green play. The regression data says his putting should stay bad, so this isn't like it's got to get better eventually because it's not necessarily what the numbers say. But winner here, good event form, and so long as he isn't like completely ice cold and missing like 6-footers consistently, there's a path to upside here for Martin Laird at 88.
I do like Laird a lot. I think that he's a solid cash game option. Very okay with him there. I also have interest in Troy Merritt, who we have not discussed yet. Merritt, I think he has a good blend of floor and upside. Since the start of the season, the new season, he has made 9 out of 12 cuts. One of the missed cuts was pretty much right on the number. He showed some upside by finishing 4th at Pebble Beach. Has some other quality finishes in there too. He's had 7 top 30s. Merritt, pretty good all-around player, decent ball striking, quality putting. I think he's got a good profile here for $8,600. We've not talked about Troy Merritt yet, Brandon. What is your read on him for $8,600?
So I have him ranked at salary, actually like top 3 between, very specifically between like 83 and 87. But with that, I have Alex Smalley above him. I have Pat Perez above him. And I also have Matthew Neesmith above him. Even though the
top
model,
3.
I know. I was going to say, even though the model has it there, I like Matthew Neesmith this week at 85. The iron play is really, really good. Should have some putting regression. T3 at Valspar. I think I'd side with Neesmith, but again, I know this isn't like is the funnest take to like listen to, but I see the case for Merritt. I just prefer some other guys. This isn't like I don't know what you're talking about recommending him kind of take. So
you're saying there's merit to the thought that Troy Merritt's pretty good. My goal is to make you quit. Now that you have a new title?
I almost said that joke for you, but
if it's obvious enough, we'll both take it and everyone will just groan. So I think that's a positive. At least you know what you're getting with the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast. Let's finish up here with some win picks for the Valero Texas Open based on the current odds over at FanDuel Sportsbook. I'm going to lock in Maverick Mcneely, 34-1 as one of my bets. Anyone standing out to you immediately?
Even though the numbers trending shorter, I still think for the sake of the show, I'll go with Mito at 55.
Okay. So you have Mito Pereira 55-1. I've got Maverick McNeely 34-1. I kind of feel like I should put my money where my mouth is and go with Hideki at 17-1.
Are you asking me?
Kind of. I'm not asking you for your I'm just thinking. I'm thinking. Okay. So I think my two options here are Johnny Vegas and Hideki Matsuyama. I'm gonna go Hideki though at 17-1.
Okay, I'll propose a swap to you. Because these could be basically identical. You can have Hideki at 17 and McNeely at 34, and I'll go Connors at 16 and Woodland at 34 instead.
Why? If you like Mito, why would you not go Mito? No, you're gonna be mad at me. No. You're gonna be mad at Mito or mad at me if Mito wins. I'm not doing that. I know how this goes. I know this game. I played this game, like you said, for 9 years. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. So quit asking.
Okay. Okay.
So you have Mito and who?
I'll go Gary Woodland, 34.
Okay. So you have Woodland and Mito. I have Hideki and Mav as my two picks this week. I'm guessing Maverick McNeely is someone I've probably picked on the show this year previously, but whatever.
He didn't show up in the. No, wait, you did. AT&T. At Pebble Beach, you took McNeely and Mito.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
You took Mito at the Bermuda.
Yeah. I think this makes sense. Okay. Before we send off the good people to fill out their lineups, Brandon, any final words of wisdom for you for the Valero Texas Open?
I think there's going to be some really easy ways to be different with if you think Hideki's good to go, if you think Bryson might be good to go. Abraham Answer's 21-1, and I don't think we even mentioned his name aside from whenever you would have read off the odds. So you don't have to get too strange to get a little bit different, but we do also have a good number of value plays, I think, that we can feel confident into. So there's not even though there's a lot of overlap with you and like with our picks, that's not, sometimes it feels like there's a lot of overlap with our picks and that the only picks that make sense at salary, really not the case this week. So feel free to use the notes that we gave and spin them your own way.
Or just throw them in the trash. That also works too. That is all that we have here for today for the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast for the Valero Texas Open bet. As always, a quick reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast and the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcast. Search for the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
I'm at Gadula13, GDULA13.
And I'm at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in for today. Good luck to you with your DFS lineups. We'll talk to you once again next week for the Masters in Augusta. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire.